Damon Stoudamire is out as head coach, and he has no one to blame but Damon Stoudamire.
You are Locked On Georgia Tech, your daily podcast on the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Georgia Tech. I'm your host, Jarvis Davis. I want to say thank you for joining me on this bonus edition of Locked On Georgia Tech. Obviously, with the news coming out that Damon Stoudamire has been fired as head coach of the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets, I had to come on here and go live with you and have a conversation about it. And coming up on today's show, we'll talk about that one thing that Ryan Alpert needs to consider before he starts this hiring process. But first, this was a move that Ryan Alpert absolutely had to do. Damon Stoudamire gave him no choice. He gave him no choice. And the reason why he gave him no choice, because when you look at the way that Damon Stoudamire ended the season, 12-game losing streak. That is absolutely unacceptable. And during this losing streak, there was the same type of play. Even in the last game as head coach against the Clemson Tigers, you saw it. Got out to a nice lead, playing well. I like what I saw in Kerouac. Jaden Mustaf was out there looking good, getting to his spots, little mid-range game. It was actually pretty cool to watch. But as the game went along, I started to get this feeling in my soul. I started to get this feeling that, hey, it's probably about to start going the Damon Stoudamire way. You start to see the turnovers. You start to see going long periods of time without making a basket, making two-pointers, as Damon so eloquently put it in one of his post-game press conferences. We got an issue with making two-pointers. Yeah. And then eventually, Clemson ended up closing that bad boy out and going on to play in the ACC tournament. And Tech is sitting here, not even a top 15 team in the conference, which is absolutely unacceptable. You can't do stuff like that. So, yeah, Damon Stoudamire has no one to blame but himself. He gave Ryan Alpert absolutely no choice but to do what he did. He had to fire him. He made no case whatsoever to, hey, man, give me one more chance. Give me one more chance. I know I can do this. And another reason why I feel like Damon Stoudamire gave Ryan Alpert no choice but to fire him is lack of leadership. Just absolute lack of leadership. And I want to go back to a previous show that I did where I pointed out some of the things that Damon was saying. By the way, I like some of the feedback that you all gave me on that. I appreciate that. I just didn't like what he was saying. He said, I have to get my guys in here. And I went through the entire roster of guys that got the majority of the minutes for this team, and those are all the guys that he brought in. So to me, looking to you as the leader of this team, the leader of this squad, up there answering questions about why you ended up losing this game, I said to myself, you kind of threw your players under the bus. Because the results don't necessarily match up with the guys on your roster, because these are your guys. You brought them in. You brought multiple guys in via the portal, and they played a bulk of the minutes. They played a lot of minutes for you this year, and it did not work out. That's on you. You would have been better off just saying to yourself or saying to the media, saying, hey, like, these are the guys that I chose to bring in, and it's on me that we're sitting at the bottom of this conference. It's on me. But nope, He did not do that. He sat up there with that look on his face and said that I got to get my type of guys in here. That's the only way I can turn it around. No, man. You had the opportunity to do that. And I think that displays just a huge, huge lack of leadership. A huge lack of accountability. You can't throw your players under the bus like that. So, yeah, lack of leadership. 12-game losing streak. You gave Ryan Alpert no chance. It wasn't even a conversation. I'm sure he was like, hey, man, you're going to have to go. He called him out of his office. Could have done that. I'm not going to sit up here and say that Ryan Alpert didn't do that. Called him over the phone and everything. Left him a Dear John letter. Like, oh, no, you can't come back. We're moving on. No, I'm not saying that. But I'm sure it was a quick interaction, however it went down, giving him the news that he was no longer going to be the head coach of the team. Another reason why Ryan Alpert had to do this. No progress. None whatsoever. No progress. The first year you beat North Carolina and Duke, kind of had that little giant killer feel about you, you know? And then you were a 500 team through and through in your second year. Like, okay, all right. Trying to figure some things out. And then you went and got the transfer portal guys. You know, you continue to develop a couple of guys that you on your team, you know. You had Kawhi Reeves, leading scorer on your team. You brought him in. Badongo, Mosilla. And unfortunately, the injuries kind of hit you. But even with all of those injuries, you still had talent on this roster, up and down this roster. And you just showed no progress whatsoever. None. And I think that ultimately the legacy that Damon Stoudamire has left with this team and with this institution is the fact that you all used to just start games slow and feel your way through to start games as if you didn't have a plan. And because when I think about what Damon Stoudamire has done since he's been here, since he was hired to be the head coach of this team, you really didn't have a plan. There was no real plan. And he's going to have to live with that. He also going to have to live with the fact that he gave Ryan Alpert absolutely no choice but to do what he had to do. Coming up next, I got a little advice for Ryan. There's one thing that he needs to do before he kind of moves on into this hiring process. Just one thing. Just one thing. One thing to consider. And we'll talk about that next. This episode of Locked On Georgia Tech is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Welcome to the 5 Hour Energy Flavor Draft with 18 different flavors to choose from, including new options like Confetti Craze, Fruity Rainbow, or Cotton Candy. There's something for everyone. The board is set. The flavors are ready. And I've got my number one pick for the 5 Hour Energy Flavor Draft. Guess what, guys? It is grape. Concord grape flavor. Similar to grape juice or candy. I'm talking about that soft, rounded sweetness. It is absolutely amazing. It reminds me of the time when I was a kid. I used to love myself some grape bubble gum. I used to get that bubble gum. Used to lose flavor really quickly. But no, not 5 Hour Energy. That grape flavor, it is absolutely amazing. Got that purple candy style type finish to it. Oh, just so good. And you know what I want to actually try and I think it's going to be absolutely amazing. Oh, peach mango. Oh, come on. I'm a Georgia boy. Of course I want to try the peach, man. This is what we do down here. We got these peaches on deck just for you. I'm talking about a smooth, slightly richer mouthfeel with the citrus flavors, all that stuff. It's just so sweet and aromatic finish, balanced tropical blend. You don't have to worry about being too sweet and all that stuff. I was also, guys, 0 calories. Like, what are we talking about here? This is the absolute drink that you need to try and need to get into. So you can find your new flavor for 5-Hour Energy shots available online at 5hourenergy.com or Amazon. This episode of Locked on Georgia Tech is also brought to you by Indeed. Workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position you have to fill is still sitting open. When the pressure's on and you need the right hire, this is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. I'm telling you. And so you're not, Indeed sponsored jobs does it for you because you're not just hoping that the right candidate stumble across your post. You're going to get the person that is the right fit just for you. And in the time we've been talking, 27 people have found jobs via Indeed. So spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. Less stress, less time, more results. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it absolutely deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. So go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard this on Locked on Georgia Tech. Whew. That's Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. It's also an episode brought to you by Mazda. This moving the game forward, I'm talking about, oh gosh, I have to give it to Ryan Alpert because we understand what this program brings to the table. We understand the history. I talked about Bobby Crimmins and what he brought for this program. I know some of you all may or may not like Paul Hewitt, but hey, he had success when he was here. That's what we're trying to get back to. That's what we want to be able to watch. I want to be able to be excited about watching games because Damon Stoudamire took all that away from me. I promise you. I watched him, but I did not enjoy it. It wasn't a good product. So I think Ryan Alpert deserves the moment before Mazda. Like these type of moments reminds us of what it really takes to raise the bar. And Ryan Alpert is doing that. It's the extra work off the court, dialing in every detail, giving it the extra fire, that grit, and that I never quit. We put the same passion into every model that we build. Highlight makes the real. What it took to get there, that's what make it count. Making the right decision to move on because it's time to just move on. There's more to Mazda because there is more to you. I said there was one thing that I feel that Ryan Alpert absolutely has to consider before he moves into starting the process of finding a guy who's going to be the right fit for the head coach position that is now open. And that one thing for me is find out what type of support you will have for this program. Because once you start to do that, that is what is going to determine the type of candidate you're going to start looking for. In today's NIL world, we understand that you can sell your institution, you can sell your coaching acumen, you can sell that developmental program, but what is part of the conversation in 2026 for today's student athlete, yeah, I had to say it just because that's what NCAA is still trying to preach to me, that it's a student athlete, but you know, of course that we know for a fact that is up for debate. But follow me here. These are the things that are going to be a part of this conversation for the foreseeable future. Money. Gotta have that money. Gotta have that support. You gotta have that as part of that pitch, as part of those conversations that you are going to have with players that you're looking at bringing in. Because if you plan on going after one of those guys, and to be honest with you, looking at the potential prospects of head coaches out there, because we've talked about them on this show before, on this pod before, not many. So guys like that are going to want to know exactly what I'm going to be working with. What's my salary cap? And I wholeheartedly believe that Ryan Alpert is going to have to answer those questions because it matters in today's game. It matters so much, so much. So he has to make sure that he has that listed out. He has that number. He has those numbers, those boosters, the ones that gave that 20 mil. Hey man, I got 10 from each of you all. Like, what about this basketball program? They were like, Ryan, if we support this basketball program like we're supporting this football program, hey, here's what we need. We need this. You need to see progress. You need to see, hey, this is a much better looking team than it was last year. Those are the things that are going to have to happen in order for you to go out and get the type of candidate that you would like. All right. If you want to get an experienced guy who has a nice resume, it doesn't have to be that long. You want to get somebody who want to be around for a little while. They're going to wonder what type of support this institution is going to give them. And Ryan Alpert absolutely has to be able to answer those questions. And one more quick thing before we wrap up. When it comes to the experience versus up and coming guy, I think that you've tried that before. Damon Stoudamire was a young and up and coming head coach. He had one winning season at Pacific. So there was promise. And then he was just coming off the championship as an assistant with the Boston Celtics. So you put those two things together and say, you know what? J-Bat said, oh, yeah, come on down. We can kind of build something here. And you see what the results were. You find yourself 3 years later looking for another head coach. So I don't necessarily think that up and coming is going to be too favorable. You may have to get a guy who has some experience. He has the winning, but he's still fairly young. Because going back to the NIL money and that support, they want to know that this guy's going to be around for a while and he's going to win. So you may have to look at a combination of the two. That might need to be what you look for in this next candidate. Once you figure out what the support is, how much money you're going to be working with, so you can let these coaches who are going to be wanted by other teams as well, you can come up with a nice compensation package, not only for the coach, but the type of monies he's going to have access to as he hit that recruiting trail. Because Lord knows you're going to have to pound it. Because oddly enough, Damon Stoudamire brought in these guys. I don't know if they were his type of guys, but the people that he brought in, they're probably going to walk out of that door. And that's truly unfortunate because there's some talented basketball players on this team. And that's going to do it right here on Locked On Georgia Tech. I want to thank you for making us your first listen or watch on today. Make sure that you check us out on Monday. How about that? Whenever you listen to this episode or whenever you consume Locked On Georgia Tech, make sure you check us out and continue to support and subscribe to this YouTube channel. If you are on audio, make sure you hit that follow button, hit that subscribe button so you can know when every episode drops. Appreciate you for joining me on this bonus edition of Locked On Georgia Tech. We'll see you tomorrow.